In our headlines on this Monday, January 13th, here in South Korea. While anti-corruption investigators and police officials remain tight-lipped about the timing of their next arrest attempt of the president, there is widespread belief that the warrant will be executed within this week. Meanwhile, President Yoon Suk-yeol is not expected to attend the first hearing of his impeachment trial amid concerns over his safety and security, given the presence of a warrant for his arrest. And on the diplomatic front, Foreign Minister Chu Air is hosting his Japanese counterpart Takeshi Waya here in Seoul as their governments seek to maintain amicable bilateral ties. There is strong belief that a second arrest attempt against the president will take place within this week. For more on this, Arirang's Ini is standing by live on site. Ini, welcome. Let's start then with what we do know about the planned execution of the latest warrant. What have you been seeing on the ground today, Ini?
Hello, Sunny. I've been here near the presidential residence since this morning in Hannam-dong Yongsan-gu District, Central Seoul. Today, Monday, marks the 7th day since the arrest warrant was issued against President Yoon Suk-yeol. However, as you mentioned, there hasn't been any signs yet that the CIO is taking any actions to execute the warrant. However, protests continue. It was snowing until 5 minutes ago, and it's still kind of snowing, but that hasn't stopped both supporters and opponents of President Yoon Suk-yeol from coming out to protest. This morning I saw a larger group of President Yoon's supporters leading rallies, but now I'm also seeing more rallies calling for his arrest. The crowd has definitely grown as the day has gone on. As concerns grow over potential physical clashes during the execution of President Yoon Suk-yeol's arrest warrant, the CIO and the police are making final adjustments to minimize any conflict and prevent any harm or violence. On Monday, the CIO announced it sent cooperation requests to the Ministry of National Defense and Presidential Security Service the night before, asking for their help in executing the warrant. The CIO also warned these agencies of potential legal consequences and compensation for any injuries or damage during the arrest. At the same time, it reassured Presidential Security Service staff, saying that refusing unlawful orders is not a failure of duty. The CIO officials have been coordinating with the police to finalize the execution plan over the weekend, with the arrest expected to happen this week once preparations are complete.
Meanwhile, any pressure on the presidential security team, I hear, to comply with the warrant, of course, is mounting.
Exactly, Sunny. The police have applied for an arrest warrant for Kim Sung-un, the acting chief of the Presidential Security Service, after he failed to respond to 3 summonses. This comes after the unexpected resignation of former chief Park Jong-jun last Friday. Former Chief Park is undergoing his 3rd round of questioning, which started this morning. Additionally, Lee Kwang-woo, the head of the security headquarters, failed to respond to a 3rd summons. In response, the police might apply for an arrest warrant.
And speaking about arrest warrants, Ini, what has been the president's stance to his warrant?
Yes, Sunny, no changes in President Yoon's actions. While earlier his legal team issued a statement addressing requests for officials to show their ID cards and reveal their faces for identity verification during the warrant execution. To this, the officials stated they would follow the legal procedures in carrying out the execution. On Sunday, President Yoon's legal team submitted a letter of attorney to the CIO requesting a delay in the execution of the arrest warrant until after the conclusion of the impeachment trial at the Constitutional Court. However, the CIO emphasized that the arrest warrant remains valid, regardless of the submission of the letter. Also, despite concerns from President Yoon's legal team that the CIO might execute the arrest warrant when President Yoon leaves the residence for the impeachment trial, the CIO has stated that the warrant will be executed regardless of his attendance inside the presidential residence. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Ini, thank you for the latest from the president's residential area, and do keep us posted throughout the day. Meanwhile, the Constitutional Court has a busy agenda this week as the president's impeachment trial begins tomorrow, that is Tuesday, while the pre-trial hearing for the Prime Minister is taking place as we speak. Now, for more on this hour, Oh Soo-young is live on the line. Soo-young, let's start with the president's first hearing slated for tomorrow afternoon. I understand he will not be attending that session.
Sure, Sunny, that's right. Yoon's legal team announced Sunday that the president would not be attending his first trial hearing, citing security concerns. And the Constitutional Court said earlier this afternoon that without both parties present at the first session, it's likely to end quickly. And indeed, former President Park Geun-hye's first trial hearing lasted around 9 minutes as she wasn't present. Now, Yoon's plan to miss the first hearing doesn't really come as a surprise, given that his team has already indicated that they need more time for preparation, and they've also raised issues with the way that the Constitutional Court is conducting the hearings. So if he skips the first session, then it would have to be rescheduled by the justices. But if he misses the second one, then the court is allowed to proceed without him. According to the court, Yoon has not submitted any list of witnesses so far. In fact, Yoon's team has indicated that it's considering requesting changes to the hearing schedule, taking into account the attempts to execute a warrant to arrest him. Investigators, and this of course comes as investigators look to make another attempt to detain Yoon for questioning in the days to come, after their first attempt earlier this month failed after a 5-hour standoff. And while no formal requests for a delay or explanation for Yoon's absence, though, for his first trial hearing tomorrow has been submitted so far, though. But the court did say that the president's team, it's applied to withdraw its request for an injunction and a competence dispute regarding the first arrest warrant, which expired last week.
Right, I see. Also, Soo-young, how did the pre-trial hearing with regard to the impeachment case against Prime Minister Han Duck-soo go today?
Right, well, it went on for almost an hour, actually. The first preparatory trial hearing for Prime Minister Han, it began at 4 p.m. and 17 days after the opposition-led National Assembly pushed for a vote to impeach him, shortly after his veto of some controversial bills and his refusal to appoint Constitutional Court justices until there was a bipartisan agreement reached. Now, during the session, justices aimed to outline the main arguments made by Han's side and the Assembly panel. The National Assembly first set out 5 grounds for impeachment, including Han's veto of the 2 said controversial bills, and they accused him of participating in the martial law decree. They also said that he announced the plan for joint state governance between the ruling party and the government immediately after the declaration of martial law. They also cited this plan to conduct his refusal to appoint special prosecutors as well as constitutional justices, all of these as the main grounds for impeaching him. Meanwhile, Han's lawyers argued that he had not taken part in the martial law decision nor its execution, and that the acting president's appointment of justices is a responsibility but not an obligation. The lawyers also refuted that Han had offered to appoint justices once there was a bipartisan agreement, and moreover, they added that the impeachment procedure itself was invalid. Han, who was serving as acting president at the time, was impeached under voting standards of a simple majority that applies to the prime minister, rather than the 2/3 majority applied to the president, which raises issues, of course, with the procedure and also the validity of the impeachment itself. So that has really been the cause of bipartisan debate over in Parliament as well. The veteran bureaucrat and diplomat, he's been seen as a symbol of stability in the country's governance after President Yoon's powers were suspended. And the ruling party has been pushing for his reinstatement, especially as they oppose the current acting president Choi Sang-mok's move to appoint 2 constitutional justices, which enables the court to speed up President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial. So that's why there have been many calls from their end to quickly hold the trial over Prime Minister Han's impeachment first.
Right, I see. All right, Soo-young, thank you for that coverage from the Constitutional Court. Meanwhile, the ruling People Power Party is preparing its version of a bill for a special probe into President Yoon Suk-yeol's short-lived martial law that excludes what the party calls unlawful components of the version drafted by the opposition parties. The version by the ruling party limits the scope of the proposed probe and excludes allegations of insurrection. Meanwhile, also earlier today, the opposition party's latest version of the probe bill passed the Legislation Committee's review. Accordingly, the opposition hopes to put the bill up to a parliamentary vote within this work week. The initial version of the bill was vetoed by acting President Choi 2 weeks ago. And staying at the National Assembly, acting President Choi sat down separately with the heads of rival political parties earlier on this Monday to discuss the warrant authorizing the president's arrest. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon covers those talks.
Acting President and Deputy Prime Minister for Finance Choi Sang-mok has addressed the seemingly imminent second execution of the arrest warrant for President Yoon Suk-yeol with the leaders of the two main parties. This came as Choi paid a visit to the National Assembly on Monday and separately met with the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea leader Lee Jae-myung and ruling People Power Party's interim leader Kwon Young-se with the same message.
Regarding the ongoing execution of arrest warrants, under no circumstances should citizens be harmed or should unfortunate incidents arise from physical confrontations. I have repeatedly emphasized this to the relevant agencies, but I also ask for efforts at the parliamentary level.
However, the DP's Lee Jae-myung did not agree with Choi's stance. He says Choi's job as the interim leader of the government is to prevent situations where court-issued warrants are obstructed by force when being carried out by the police, in reference to the Presidential Security Service's plan to protect Yoon from being detained.
Well, saying something like, we shouldn't arrest a suspect because they might resist, feels a bit off to me. I don't think that's the right approach.
The ruling PPP's interim leader Kwon Young-se sided with Choi, in that Choi needs to make sure no party acts in a way that could lead to accidents.
The safety of citizens is paramount, and just as important as the matters within the National Assembly is the reputation of South Korea. As this is an issue that directly impacts the nation's dignity, I urge appropriate measures to be taken.
Another key topic for Choi's two meetings was a special probe bill against President Yoon's alleged insurrection. He had previously vetoed the first insurrection special probe bill 2 weeks ago, claiming the bill seemed unconstitutional. The opposition lawmakers are looking to unilaterally pass another special probe bill, and he requested that the two parties have sufficient discussions before passing the bill.
Regarding the special prosecutor bill, which is expected to be discussed by the ruling and opposition parties, I request that both sides work together to draft a bill free of unconstitutional elements.
On top of this, Choi requested that the gap across the aisle narrows and that the two sides become one team to boost the suffering economy. He reiterated the importance of the recently kicked off joint consultative body between government and rival parties to discuss state affairs to swiftly pass necessary laws to boost the economy. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Waya is here in Seoul for a two-day visit. Upon arrival on this Monday, he made his way to the Seoul National Cemetery to pay tribute to the fallen heroes there. Now, this marks the first time in some 7 years since a Japanese foreign minister has visited this burial ground. Foreign Minister Chu then hosted the top Japanese diplomat for talks as their two governments celebrate 60 years of diplomatic relations this year. Acting President Choi Sang-mok is also expected to sit down with Mr. Iwaya tomorrow, that is Tuesday. The final 4 minutes leading up to the fatal crash of the Boeing 737-800 operated by Jeju Air have not been recorded by the plane's black boxes. Our An Sung-jin reports.
Data of the final minutes from the Jeju airplane crash are missing after its black boxes apparently stopped recording. The Aviation and Railway Accident Investigation Board said on Saturday that data from the FDR, the flight data recorder, and the cockpit voice recorder or CVR have no record of the last 4 minutes before the crash. These were sent to the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board for analysis. The data would have provided key evidence from the crash last month as to what happened during the last few minutes after the pilot declared a mayday while he was attempting to land the plane. Aviation experts say that this may be due to a shutdown after both engines stopped following a bird strike. An aircraft's black box could stop recording if power isn't supplied, and in this case, it has been reported that there were no emergency batteries to provide this. The investigation board added that though the exact cause of why the recording stopped is unclear, it has pledged to further scrutinize why the data wasn't saved. However, with this crucial element of the investigation missing, finding out the exact cause is expected to be further delayed. During a Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures headquarters meeting on Monday, Lee Han-kyung, the Ministry of the Interior's chief for disaster management, stated that inspections of airlines using the same plane as the one in the Jeju Air Crash were completed last week. He emphasized that all inspection results will be disclosed and improvements will be promptly implemented. The government has further vowed to inspect the safety guidelines of 11 airlines and at runways and terminals of 15 airports across the country to reduce concerns regarding flying commercially. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea's exports are starting the new year strong, driven by sales of semiconductors. According to the Korea Customs Service on this Monday, exports for the first 10 days of 2025 rose 3.8% on year to $16 billion. Now, outbound shipments of semiconductors rose by almost 24%, accounting for roughly a third of the country's total exports during the same period. Exports have been on an upward trend for the past 15 months in a row, with a 6.6% on-year gain in December, a fresh high for that month. Video footage of 2 North Korean troops detained by Ukraine appeared to show initial ignorance of actual deployment by their regime to the war zone between Ukraine and Russia. Our Park Gonu explains.
Interrogation footage of the 2 injured North Korean soldiers captured in the Kursk region by Ukraine last week was revealed over the weekend.
누구랑 싸운다고 했어?
훈련을 실전처럼 해본다고 했어요.
다시 북한으로 돌아가고 싶어?
우크라이나 사람은 맞춰온 거예요. 여기서 살고 싶어요.
The 2 soldiers were transported to Kyiv for medical care after they were caught. One of the soldiers was even found with the Russian military ID under a different name and registered in the Tuva Republic. The Security Service of Ukraine has been communicating with them with the help of South Korea's National Intelligence Service, as they only speak Korean. The NIS said Monday that the North Korean soldiers deployed in Russia were supposed to commit suicide or blow themselves up before being captured. It added that around 300 of the North soldiers in Russia have been killed, with 2,700 wounded. On Sunday local time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky offered to swap captured North Koreans for Ukrainian troops in a proposal written in English, Ukrainian, and also Korean. The offer says Ukraine is ready to hand over Kim Jong-un's soldiers to him in exchange for Ukrainian soldiers. Zelensky said there's no doubt that Russia is dependent on military assistance from North Korea, adding that it's only a matter of time before more North Korean soldiers are captured. He also said if the North Korean soldiers do not wish to return to the north, there were other options for them to stay. South Korea's Ministry of Unification shared its stance on the issue.
There are separate international laws and treaties regarding prisoners of war. The issue should be discussed with relevant countries along with a review of international law. There's nothing to comment on with certainty at this point.
One expert shared possible scenarios under the Geneva Convention.
The repatriation of North Korean troops will depend on legal rulings regarding their status as parties to the conflict, while South Korea as a non-belligerent may not be a transferred destination. That cannot be entirely ruled out, as forcibly repatriating prisoners against their will could violate international human rights laws. Exceptions always exist.
Though the North Korean prisoners have not yet commented on defecting to South Korea, the NIS said it'll discuss this with Ukraine if such requests are made. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the U.S., at least 24 people have lost their lives to raging wildfires in the Los Angeles area since last week, as firefighters race against time to contain the blaze amid forecasts of greater winds this week. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
With firefighters still struggling to extinguish the massive wildfires that continue to spread throughout Los Angeles County, strong winds are forecast to hit the affected region, further worsening the already tense situation. Fire authorities are deploying over 1,000 fire trucks and over 10,000 firefighters before the strong winds arrive.
Now today, strong north to northeast winds gusts are up to 50 miles per hour with low humidity will be observed. A red flag warning is in effect and will remain until 6 p.m. Wednesday evening. Strong Santa Ana winds are also expected to last through Wednesday, with the strongest winds occurring on Tuesday. With the next wave of wind events, I want to be very, very clear here. It's very important that the community understands that these wind events are coming into Los Angeles. I want to reassure you that Mayor Bass, Chief McDonald, and I are united and focused on exactly what we need to do to prepare the city with these next strong winds that are coming.
With local firefighters struggling to extinguish the fast-moving fires, firefighters from 9 other states have joined efforts to control the fires. Firefighters from Mexico have also been deployed to help. The joint efforts are all the more crucial due to how fast the fires are moving. So far in the 4 active wildfires in Los Angeles County, 160 square kilometers have been burned, an area larger than San Francisco. As of Sunday afternoon local time, only 11% of the fire in Pacific Palisades had been extinguished, while 27% had been extinguished in Eaton. The economic losses from the wildfires are estimated to be between $135 billion to $150 billion so far. However, with many of the wildfires yet to be extinguished, that figure is expected to rise even further. Unfortunately, with residents evacuating, incidents of looting and homes being broken into are on the rise. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has announced plans for an upcoming meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin after Trump is sworn in on January 20th. The Kremlin has responded positively with spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, noting Putin's openness to dialogue. The exact timeline for talks between the two leaders has not yet been offered. However, it's expected to address the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Trump's potential return to the White House has sparked optimism for a diplomatic resolution to end Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, which began in February 2022. During his election campaign, Trump repeatedly claimed he could end the war within 24 hours. However, he and his advisors have more recently suggested that peace might be achievable within months of his inauguration. Despite the hope, there are concerns in queue that a swift peace deal could come at a significant cost for Ukraine. In Africa, the Sudanese armed forces announced on January 11th that it had recaptured the strategic city of Wat Madani from the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces. This marks a significant victory in the ongoing civil war in Sudan. Wat Madani, the capital of Gezira State, had been under RSF control since December 2023. The recapture of Wat Madani is expected to have major implications for the ongoing conflict, potentially shifting the balance of power in favor of the SAF. Known as an agricultural hub, the central city had previously served as a refuge for displaced families and a base for humanitarian operations. The conflict in Sudan, which began in April 2023, has resulted in over 28,000 deaths, the displacement of more than 12 million people, and half the population facing hunger, creating one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. In Romania, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of Bucharest on Sunday to protest the Constitutional Court's unprecedented cancellation of the presidential election on December 6th. The court's decision cited allegations of electoral violations and potential Russian interference that favored right-wing candidate Călin Gheorghiu, a critic of NATO who had unexpectedly led the first round of voting. In response to the court's ruling, the government has rescheduled the election dates for May 4th and a potential runoff on May 18th. However, uncertainty remains over whether Georgescu will be permitted to run again. In Russia's Yakutia region, dozens of marathon runners braved freezing temperatures of around -50 degrees Celsius. Also known as the Cold Pole, it's one of the coldest regions in the world, and such weather is typical for the winter season, where the lowest temperature on record was -67.7 degrees Celsius in 1933. While a marathon 42.2 kilometers long is challenging even in ideal weather, running in such cold conditions only adds to the difficulty. Runners sipped hot beverages for hydration and were seen with their hair and eyelashes covered in ice. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Leaving the cold morning behind, the temperatures rose quite significantly during the day today. The daytime temperature in Seoul rose to 6 degrees Celsius, which is about 3 degrees higher than yesterday. However, ultrafine dust has become a problem again. The air quality in the Seoul metropolitan area, the Chungcheongdo provinces, Gangwon-do province, and Gyeongsang-buk-do province will see bad levels of ultrafine dust tomorrow. Sporadic rain and snow have been falling in the Seoul metropolitan area and the western parts of Gangwon-do province. Weak snow and rain will spread to the Chungcheongdo provinces and some southern inland areas overnight. The expected amount of snow is up to 5 centimeters in Gangwon-do province. Other areas, including Seoul, will see around 1 centimeter of snow. Tomorrow, Seoul and Daejeon will start off at 1 degree. Highs will move up to 4 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, Gwangju 9 degrees. No severe cold is forecast throughout the week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching.